I'm pretty sure that as a part of the product engineering team, you must have built a very innovative product or must have automated a process, and now it's time to market and ship the product. The sales team will have multiple questions around how the product works, its architecture, design, and the process flow to mention the least. These questions are repetitive and comes in different forms. It therefore becomes frustrating at times to explain the same things again and again. Is there a solution? Well, of course, yes. We can leverage the low-code chatbots for the purpose, which can considerably reduce your overheads of explaining and answering about the product again and again. Hi, my name is Dheeraj Kumar, and in this session, I'm going to discuss, create and configure custom question and answer bot using language services, which is a part of Azure Cognitive Services. Let's get started. Before we dive into the demonstration and see how to create and configure these chatbots, let's first try to understand what question and answering is. So basically, question and answering provides a cloud-based natural language processing that allows to create a natural conversational layer over your data. Basically, you can build a conversational client applications and use it for your end users. If they have any queries, they can just come to the application, they can type in their queries and get the response to their queries and find appropriate answers from the input provided. Now, there are certain capabilities of these question and answering, and these are the custom question answering, where as a developer of this low-code chatbot, you have the capability to customize different aspects like edit the question and answer pairs extracted from the content source. You can define the synonyms and the metadata as well. And you can also accept the suggestions that Microsoft provides based on the question and answer that has been provided by you. That is, the data that you provide. Based on that, Microsoft also provides certain suggestions that can be accepted or denied. We then have the pre-built question and answering. This capability allows users to get the response by querying a text passage without having the need to manage the knowledge bases. So in the first case, where we are talking about custom question and answering, there you have the authority and you have the responsibility to manage the knowledge bases. Whereas in the second case, where we are talking about the pre-built question and answering, there is no need for you to manage those knowledge bases. Now that we know about the question and answering, let's get into the demo and try to understand how to create and configure these chatbots. Here we are on my Azure portal. Now I have two ways to create the language resource. One is I can click on Cognitive Services, and then under Language, I can click on Language Services. Once we are there, we can click on the Create button. And from under Select Additional Features, I have two options to choose from. One is the custom question answering, and the second one is custom text classification and custom named entity recognition. But for the purpose of this demo, we will have to choose the custom question and answering. But before we do that, let me show you the other way of coming to the same page and creating the language resource. I'll click on Microsoft Azure to go to the home page, and then I'll click on Create a Resource. From under Categories, the first one is AI plus Machine Learning. I'll click on it, and then I will see Language Services as the fourth option. I'll click on Create, and here we are on the same page. Now from under Custom Features, I will select the Custom Question and Answering, and once I'm done, I'll click on Continue to create the resource. For the subscription, I have just one subscription, which is Azure Training, and that is by default selected. For the resource group, I'll click on the drop down and select ATCSL India. I'll let the region remain as East US. For the name, I'll give it a name of ATCSL Language. Now for the pricing tier, I have two options. One is free F0, which allows for 5,000 transactions per 30 days. And the other one is standard, which allows for 1,000 calls per minute. Now, for the purpose of this demo, I could have chosen free F0, but since I have already utilized 1 out of 1 free service, I cannot choose free anymore. So I'll have to choose the standard. I'll choose that and I'll scroll down. For the Azure search region, I'll let it remain as East US, and the search service is required for your custom question and answering. For the Azure search pricing tier also, I'll have to choose from the drop down, and let me choose as standard as itself, which allows for 50 indexes. There are other options as well, like free F0 and basic standard S2, and each of them allows for different number of indexes. I could have chosen free F, but as I already told you, I've already consumed the free tier. And that is why I have to choose standard or any other. I could have chosen basic as well, but let us go with standard S. From under responsible AI notice, I need to check this box, which says by checking this box, I certify that I have reviewed and acknowledged the terms in the responsible AI notice. Once everything is done, I'll click on next network. Now here we don't need to select anything or fill anything, so I'll click on next identity. Under the identity, I have two options. One is this system assigned managed identity, and the other one is the user assigned managed identity. Now these managed identities are used to grant this particular language resource access to the other existing Azure resources once they are given permission to that resource. Now if you're not aware of what are managed identities or what is the difference between the system assigned managed identity or the user assigned managed identity, I've created a separate course on that, and the link appears on the top right corner. You can go ahead and look at that video. Now from under the system assigned managed identity, the status shows as on by default, and I'll let it remain as on because it will create a system assigned managed identity while it is creating this language resource. I don't need a user assigned managed identity for the purpose of this demo. I'll click on next tags, nothing else to be filled here, so I'll click on next review and create. It will take a couple of minutes and it will try to validate whatever information we have filled in. Now that the validation has passed, I'll click on the create button. It's a quick process, but still it will take a couple of minutes, so I'll wait for the resource to be deployed. I'll pause the video and return back once this is done. Okay, now the resource has been created. We can click on go to resource group and we will be redirected to the resource group page where we can see that there are certain things that are created for us. One is the search service. We created our language service by the name of ATCSL language, and that's the language service that has been created. And with that, we also see that there is a search service created. Now, what's next? We can click on the language resource, which is ATCSL language. And here are certain things that I wanted you to look at. One is the keys and endpoint. Now, when you create the language resource, it creates two keys. As usual, key 1 and key 2, which we can regenerate as well. Now, the location shows as East US and it has an endpoint of ATCSL language.cognitiveservices.azure.com. And if I go to overview, we can go to the language studio and create a custom question and answer project. So I'll click on get started with the language studio and it will take me to language.cognitive.azure.com home. Now, if you look here, it does not sign me in by default. So I'll click on sign in. And now that I am signed in with neeraj@azuretraining.com, I can choose the Azure directory. That's the Azure Active Directory. And then we have Azure subscription. I can click on the drop down and I can click on Azure Training. That's the only subscription I have. For the resource type, it's the language resource type. If I click on the drop down, I have other options as well. One is the cognitive services and the other one is shown as translator. For the purpose of this demo, we'll let it remain as language because language resource is something that we need to create and then subsequently create the chatbot. For the resource name, I can click on drop down And if you see here, it shows ATCSL language. That's the language service resource that we had created earlier. So I will choose this, and once done, I'll click on the done button. Okay, now if you look here, it says recent custom projects you have worked on. For now, there is nothing. What I can do is I can click on the create new drop down. What we need is the custom question and answering. We can click on this and continue, but there is one other way to create the custom question and answering. And that is if we click on understand questions and conversational language, here I have the option to create the custom question and answering. So that's other way to do it. What I'll do is I'll click on create new and then choose custom question answering. A pop-up will appear, and here I have to select. So how do you want to select the language for this resource? One is I want to select the language when I create the project in the resource, or I want to set the language for all the projects created in this resource. For me, it is English. So I'll click on the drop down from here and choose English. Once that is done, I'll click on next. Now here for the name, I can create digital questions. And then I can give it a description. Since this is a non-mandatory field, I'll let it remain as blank. For the source language, since I selected English, English is selected and grayed out. And the last option is default answer when no answer is returned. For this, I'll let it remain as no answer found. What I can also do is I can add one more line of text, which is contact the administrator. Sorry, N is missing. Okay, so contact the administrator and we are done. We'll click on next. And once I'm okay with all those details, I can click on create project. And now you see that the project has been created. If I expand this, I can see different options. One is Language Studio taking me to the home page. Then we have custom question and answering, Azure search, and then digital questions is the new project that I had created, under which I have different options. One is manage resource, and from here I can add the resource. I can add the question answers. I'll show you shortly. The other options are edit knowledge base. Once you have uploaded or once you have given the source for the question and answer, edit knowledge base helps us or enables us to modify or edit those question and answers or edit those sources. Then we can deploy the knowledge base. And if there are any suggestions that Microsoft gives, which I already explained, remember when we were talking about what is question and answers within the language services, I told you that Microsoft also gives certain suggestions based on the resource or based on the source for the question and answers that we have provided. Here under review suggestions, that is what we get. And then we have the project settings. For now, let's look at the manage sources. Now from here, I can click on add source and I have three options. One is I can click on URLs and give a specific source, and the question and answers will be extracted from that particular source using the AI cognitive service, which works behind the scenes. Now, apart from that, I have two other options. One is to upload the files with the question and answer, and the third one is the chit chat. For the purpose of the demo, I'll click on files. Once we're there, I'll click on add file. I'll click on choose file, and then I can upload CloudOps FAQ. Click on open, and I need to give it a name. I'll give it a name of DW CloudOps, and then click on add all. It will take a couple of seconds and the source will be added with all the question and answers. Now if you see here, it says CloudOps FAQ Q&As, which I had uploaded. And if I click on the edit knowledge base button here, I can see all the question and answers listed. So questions along with the answers. Now I have the ability to edit this question and edit the answer as well. So I can click on edit answer. I can add more text to it, or I can remove any text from it if it is not relevant. Also, there are alternate questions as well for the same answer. So I have 3 more questions which have the same answer to it. And that is why it says alternate questions. And this seems to be pretty okay. So what we can do is I can click on deploy knowledge base. Once I'm there, I can click on deploy and then click on the deploy button from the pop-up. Now what it will do is it will deploy this project first, and once the project has been deployed, then we can create the chatbot from this particular project. It took a couple of minutes and this project has been deployed as a knowledge base. What we can do is we can click on create a bot, and once we are there on the page, again here the subscription by default is selected for us. The resource group, I'll click on the drop down, I'll choose ATCSL India. For the resource group location, it shows Asia Pacific Central India. It took it from the resource group location. We can leave it as it is, so nothing to bother. And for the Azure bot, it is asking me for the bot handle. And by default, it suggests a name. I can let it remain as it is, or we can change the name. I'll let it remain as is. For the pricing tier, it is a standard. I'll let it remain as it is. And then from the creation type, here it is asking me create a new user assigned managed identity or use the existing user assigned managed identity. And mind you, this is for the bot and not for the language service project. So for the bot, it creates a user assigned managed identity. There is nothing for the system assigned managed identity. And I will let it remain as create a new user assigned managed identity. Because I have not created any of the user assigned managed identity, I'll let the service create a new user assigned managed identity. So we are good with this. I'll click on next web app. Now here I have to fill in certain options. For the app name, it has suggested a name which is ATCSL language -bot -6339. I can go with the default name, but what I'll do is I'll just remove the -bot the number that was there, and we have ATCSL language.azurewebsites.net. Now it will check whether this particular website existed at all, and if it does, it will give me the error. Since it does not exist, it appears as a green check mark. For the SDK language selection, I can either go with C# or I can click on the drop down and choose Node.js. So we are not going to do anything with the coding, but I'll let it remain as C#. For the app service plan, I don't have any app service plan. I'll let the bot service create a new app service plan for me. I'll scroll down. For the language resource key, now this is very important to note. If I hover over the information icon, it says language resource key used to authorize the requests from your bot to your custom question and answering knowledge base. Now, this is the bot that you're creating, and this is what the users will be interacting to. Users will put in the questions, and these questions will be forwarded to the language service product or the language services knowledge base. And from there, it will try to find the response or try to find the answer and bring it back. So there needs to be a handshake, and we need to provide the language resource key that will be used for that particular handshake and authorization. And we cannot fill just any of the language resource key. We need to fill in a particular language resource key. And how do we get that? Now there are two options to get that. One is I go to the deployment knowledge base, and from here, if I click on the settings from here, I have the resources, and from under resources, you will find the language resource key. What I can do is I can click on copy from here. I can go back, and for the language resource key, I can just paste it, right? Now the other way to get the language resource key is to go back to the Azure portal, and from here you have keys and endpoint. And from here, you can copy key 1 or you can copy key 2 as well. It is better to use the key 1 because that is what is also mentioned here as the resource key. Now since I already copied and I have already pasted here, I'll let it remain as it is. For the language project name, I'll let it remain as digital questions, and it is fetching the language service endpoint hostname, which is HTTP atcslanguage.cognitiveservices.azure.com. That is fine with the subscription ID, resource group name, and the account name. What I can do is I can click on review and create, and I'll wait for the validation to pass. And once the validation has passed, I'll click on the create button. Okay, now the validation has passed, I can click on the create button. And again, it will take a couple of minutes for the deployment to be completed. So I'll pause the video and return back once this is done. Well, the deployment is complete and it creates certain resources. Let's see what they are. One is it creates a bot. Of course, that is what we wanted, right? So it created a bot. Then it also created a sites extension that will be used for the question and answering. Then we have the actual site that gets created because we also created an app service plan. So an app service plan got created with the server farm and a site was deployed. Other than that, we also have the ATCSL language-bot. Now the name appears the same, but this one is the user assigned managed identity that will be used by this resource. Now that this is done, what we can do is we can go to the resource group, and here you will see additional resource created. If you look here, this is the Azure bot that got deployed. I'll click on this particular bot and we are here within the Azure bot. And now if you look here under settings, we have different options. One is the bot profile, the other one is the configuration, and the third one is the channels. So before we go into the channels, let me show you the bot profile first. It shows the display name, the bot handle, and the description. We did not give any description, so the description does not appear. Other than that, what we can do is we can upload an icon for our chatbot. Now, if I go to configuration, under configuration, you can see certain things like the messaging endpoint. That is what we already saw, but it was ATCSL language.azurewebsites.net. But in order for the bot to reach to the language services knowledge base, it needs the /API/messages appended to the actual endpoint. And that is what makes the entire messaging endpoint. Other than that, we have the application insights instrumentation key, and we also have the application insights API key. Now we can use these application insights instrumentation key and the insights API key to access the analytics data of this particular bot. Now if I go to channels, I'll see two options there which are already there, which is direct line and the web chat. Apart from these two, we have other options as well. So what we can do, we can choose these options to have an integration with these applications. Like we have it for Alexa, then we have the communication services chat, direct line speech, email, Facebook, GroupMe, Line, and whatnot. We also have Microsoft Teams as well, so that people having questions over the Microsoft Teams can directly ask questions and get the response instead of directly coming to the application. What we can do is we can choose Microsoft Teams and click on I agree to the Microsoft channel publication terms and the Microsoft privacy statements under the terms of service, and then click on agree. Now there are two options. One is messaging is available by default for your bot. So Microsoft Teams commercial, which is by default selected, and that is what we want. The other one is Microsoft Teams government. We don't need that. So we are good with this. What we can do is we can click on apply. Now before I do that, there are two other options. One is calling and the other one is publish. Now under publish, there are two things. One is test your bot in Teams and publish your bot for Teams. There is nothing to be done here. It will get automatically published and you can go ahead and test that. Under calling, you have option to enable the calling, and this is used when you are using the Teams calling facility within your organization as well. For us, it is not needed, so I'll just go to messaging. I'll let remain the default selection as is and I'll click on apply. Here again, it will take a couple of minutes and this Microsoft Teams will be included as an integration for your chatbot. Now, when I refresh the page, it shows me Microsoft Teams added. Look at the health status here. Each of them, whether it is a direct line or it is a Microsoft Teams or web chat, everything is showing as healthy. The other option that we have here is test in web chat. So I'll click on it and I can test my bot from here. Now this is the actual test that we can do. The other test that we can do is from the language services itself, but let us see what we have here. So for the question, now if we type in here service request automation, it should show me the response from the document. And here you go. It shows, yes, standard list of common M365 requests can be automated across messaging, collaboration, and productivity platform. So this answer is extracted from the document that I had uploaded. What we can also do is we can go back to the language service, and here I'll click on Language Studio. It will show the project that we had created, which is digital questions. I'll click on it and then I can click on Edit Knowledge Base. What I can also do is I can copy the question from here. What are the benefits for implementing SR automation? Go back to the bot page and paste the question here directly. I'll send it to the bot and it brought me the response. What are the benefits for implementing the SR automation? Reduction in manual efforts and errors by end-to-end automation of common M365 activities. So this is how you can use the language services chatbot in order to automate the frequently asked questions that you are getting for your team. And that is how you can save your effort. One additional point before concluding the demo is, if I go back to my channels, here we already saw that we have three options which are enabled and they are in the healthy state. The direct line, the Microsoft Teams, as well as the web chat. Now, if you want to embed the code that we get from the web chat into your own HTML page and give the ability to the end users to communicate from that HTML page, you can do it from here. So you will have to click on the web chat and I will click on default site. Now here you will see the secret keys as well as the embedded code. Now what you can do is you can copy the code from here and take it to the notepad. Go back to the page, click on the show button, copy the secret key from here, go back to your notepad, and for the ADCSL language bot, it says your secret here. So just select it from here and paste the secret key. Now your iframe code is ready to be embedded. What you can do is you can copy from the beginning of the iframe to the closing tag, copy the complete code and paste it inside the HTML body, and your HTML page will work as a chatbot application page that can be hosted anywhere. I hope you liked the video, and if you do, please give me a thumbs up, and also please subscribe to my channel in order to motivate me to bring to you more such content. And until we meet next time, keep exploring the cloud.